So I thought this would be a quite interesting read today. This comes from politics.co.uk, and this is the Great Brexit Up Yours. How 3 decades of euroscepticism made the UK go full tabloid. And I can't disagree with its premise, to be honest with you. So, Friday the 1st will be, if the UK government has its way, the UK's first day as a former member state of the EU. It will also be exactly 29 years to the day that The Sun published its famous Up Yours Delors front page. Jacques Delors, the younger readers may need reminding, was at the time the president of the European Commission and regularly portrayed as the bogeyman for Europe's Eurosceptics. The Sun front page listed some of the appalling crimes Delors and the EU apparently, especially the French, had apparently committed. They had, quote, flooded our country with dodgy food. The paper said they wanted to replace the pound with the faceless EAC, look it up, and had banned British beef after falsely claiming it had mad cow disease. At the time, British beef did contain mad cow disease, but never mind that. Worse, the French gave in to the Nazis during the Second World War when we stood firm. And you wondered perhaps where Faragism came from. Delors got under the skeptic's skin because he had been moderate in tone and also pretty effective. The British left The British left the long home to as much Euroscepticism as the right had fallen for Free Jacques after an appearance at the TUC in 1988, where he had discussed the benefits of working people for a social Europe. Ron Todd, the General Secretary of the Transport and General Workers Union and the forerunner to Unite, declared that with the Tories in power, Brussels was now the only game in town. As far as his members were concerned, those were the days. The Sun's headline writer had tapped into a traditional British, or perhaps English, instinctive to cock a snook at authority and defy the boss class. The Up Yours is a classic response. The opening sequence of the 1959 film I'm All Right Jack is set on VE Day in 1945, with crowds cheering the end of the war. But Churchill's celebrity words are greeted with a triumphant V sign, not V for victory, from a drunken squaddy who had climbed up a lamppost. The V sign reflected the response of voters in a general election that summer in which Churchill was dumped out of the office after a Labour landslide. The 52% who voted to leave in June 2016 referendum was saying several things, but perhaps the loudest of all they were saying, in the spirit of the Sun headline, was Up Yours, to David Cameron and to George Osborne, in whom they no longer believed. Up Yours to the idea of collaboration and compromise with Europe. Up Yours to the governing class in general, which they saw as an isolated and complacent and out of touch. Voters had moved from grudging compliance with the idea of membership to the EU to outright rebellion. That spirit of rebellion now leads many to say that they welcome a no-deal exit, even if it proves to be chaotic and damaging. It is a post-rational world. The former Sun editor Daniel Leland tweeted recently, "Britain is at peak tabloid. We have a tabloid Prime Minister rolling out tabloid policies for tabloid editors." The pro-Europeans did not see this coming. We should have taken the threat of Brexit more seriously. We should not, or did not, want to believe that our offensive arguments and xenophobia would help get the Leave campaign over the line. On November the 1st, 2015, Tony Parsons wrote in The Sun in praise of the original Up Yours Delors headline. He predicted a big win for Leave, largely because of the issue of immigration. There are Syrian refugees taking a dump in the Elders in peaceful German towns, turned into refugee camps overnight. He wrote instead of effectively combating this sort of disgusting propaganda. Remainers averted their gaze and failed to engage. The frustration and despair is intense, but it does not help when Remainers succumb to the temptation offered to retaliatory "up yours" to Leavers. When Professor Brian Cox tweeted the other day about the idiots who didn't understand the threat to science from Brexit, he fell into that trap. How about you shut up and listen for just once to people who know more than you about something, he wrote. In an echo of the unsuccessful Remain campaign, Professor Cox was saying "up yours" to the people who cannot be the answer, but you cannot beat you cannot beat up yours with up yours. In Edward Albee's 1962 play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, two academics, George and his new colleague Nick, get into a row about ambition and how to play the politics at work. Exasperated and being patronized and second-guessed, Nick explodes with the words "up yours" and gets George thinking. He replies, "You take the trouble to construct a civilization, to build a society based on the principles you endeavour to make community sense out of natural order, morality out of unnatural disorder of the man's mind. You make government and art. You realise that they must both be the same. You bring things to the saddest of all points, to the point that there is something to lose, and that all at once, through the music, through the sensible sounds of men building and attempting to come to the Désiré. And what is it? What does the trumpet sound? Up yours. I suppose there is justice to it after all these years. Up yours." And Monsieur Delors, he is still with us, aged 94. Almost 7 years ago, in December 2012, he gave an interview to the German newspaper, the Heinzblatt, I think that's how you say it, in which he calmly set out how the UK could still work closely with the EU, even if it was no longer a full member. If the British cannot support the trend towards more integration in Europe, we can nevertheless remain friends, but on a different basis, he said. I can imagine such a form as a European Economic Area or a free trade agreement. Well, fancy that. So, here's the thing, what that essentially sets out. And as we've said from day one, Europe isn't going anywhere. You may remember the heady heights of 2016 where Nigel Farage was claiming that once we leave it'll cause a domino effect. But no one has left. In fact, all the other countries, and indeed euroscepticism, has plummeted around Europe, and the favourability of Europe itself has only gone up, and that is because, I've said it before, the difference in our politics. Compromise and the idea of working together in Europe is built into their democratic systems. In ours, it isn't. This is why you've seen the Labour and the Lib Dem camps, even though they both know that they don't want a no idea. That's why it's so difficult for them to come together, because our democratic system is completely at loggerheads. It is two sides constantly clashing against each other. That is why there is often no room for a third voice, so to say. So this idea that has been trumpeted, oh, it's a new age, it's a four-party way race. No, our system is purely built to be a two-party system and a race. It is a confrontational system that, it's two sides, one against the other. And one side must be the dominant, the other side must be the opposition. But there we are, that's the situation we're in. Hopefully our system will change, and either way, whether we do end up leaving, on the 31st or not, again, who knows? It's Brexit. That's what we've been saying all along. Who knows what's going to happen? But there we have it. That's the situation we're in. And I hope our system does change to a more, conciliatory and getting alliances together, because guess what? There is a lot of support for staying in the European Union. Like I say, as we've said already this week, demographics are not on the Brexiteers' side.